Here's a few news stories that caught my interest. Uh, Quantum computing is in its infancy. All the quantum computers out there are really just sort of prototypes, and there are tons of troubles actually generating good qubits and connecting them together well. But every few weeks there's another improvement. And here what they did, they're using neutral atoms to make the qubits, and they've got a system where they keep feeding in new atoms to replace the ones that lose coherence and such. So they're able to replace the atoms underlying the qubits and able to make the system continue processing for up to 2 hours. So this is a good step forward. The problem with current quantum computing systems is the qubits are too noisy, and they only can remain functional for a brief period of time before they decay. And this is a system of regenerating them. This is the huge problem. All the hardware that really does quantum computing right now is expensive, has to run at a very low temperature and all that jazz. Microsoft claimed they managed to make something called Majorana fermions on silicon, in which case they could actually make a silicon chip with up to 1 million qubits on it, which is the only way it's ever going to become practical and affordable. But so far, they've made 1 qubit that way. And we need, like hundreds of thousands of qubits that are stable at room temperature before this is ever going to be very practical. And we're far away from that. Anyway, so I was amazed to see this. Peter Thiel is an amazingly scary guy. And apparently, in addition to being a white supremacist and a eugenicist and injecting himself with the blood of young people to live longer, he also is apparently religious, and he's giving a whole series of lectures about the Antichrist, which is the kind of stuff Elon Musk does. They're all parts of the PayPal mafia, and so they all believe that they are the saviors of the world, and that all other races are inferior, and their job is to save us all by, blessing us with Teslas and Bitcoin and their glorious stuff. And so he's giving lectures about the Antichrist. So it's pretty crazy. And he made it so you can only show up to keep it confidential, and somebody leaked the first day's notes. That's how we know about it, and he punished that guy by throwing him out. Anyway, he's an amazingly scary guy. He's very rich in Silicon Valley. He's extremely influential, very close to the Trump administration, and especially J.D. Vance, who is likely to be president soon. The Trump's health seems to be failing pretty fast. It seems increasingly likely that Trump will not finish his term and J.D. Vance will become the president. And that will be a whole new level of scary stuff. Anyway, let's see what this garbage is about. Don't tell me whatever that... see if anybody get the junk off the screen. Okay, yes. So in Pennsylvania, the Governor Shapiro has released vaccine guidance to overrule the CDC. I think Washington State has also done this. California's formed a consortium with a few states out here. The states are going to have to take over medical work since the CDC is now completely taken over by lunatics and quacks. And now, in addition to blocking the COVID vaccine and telling people not to take a hepatitis vaccine, they've also claimed that Tylenol causes autistic children, which apparently is not true. I don't know anything about the science, but real scientists say this is garbage. And so anyway, we're entering, now that we have a anti-fact, anti-science regime ruling the country, we're going to have only local state officials to be the only ones that dare tell the truth about science. And by the way, there's pretty interesting here. See if I might be one of these ones behind a paywall. Yeah. 1 in 4 professors in the South at college are leaving, going to other countries, making plans to leave, which I think makes a lot of sense because especially in the South, in deep red country, these are people who teach like in humanities. And, there's now, you're forced to teach political orthodoxy instead of the truth. So people who teach, their topic has been forbidden, like diversity, equity, and inclusion, and political science, and history, and such things, and children's literature. I fired a children's literature coach because he talked about a book that was pro-LGBT. And a student said, Donald Trump has declared that there are only 2 sexes. It's illegal for you to teach this book. And he said, I don't think it's illegal, but they fired him because, it's this is what dictatorships are. You don't even know what the rules are. What you do is you anticipate in advance. You get afraid, and then you block anything that you think might possibly offend the dictator. Colleges and schools, high schools and grade schools are famous for this. I've known this. I've been working in this field all my life. And administrators are just terribly afraid of anything any parent might complain about. So they don't even make it clear what the rules are, what the limits are. Just anything that anybody complains about, they just fire the teacher to get rid of them. That's always the way it's been. So people in the South are getting out of America. I think it's probably a pretty good plan. Although, maybe it'll turn around in 26 and 28, but maybe not. So GitHub, there have been a lot of supply chain attacks where people managed to compromise a GitHub attack and poison software. So when people update their software, they're getting malware. And so GitHub is now putting mandatory two-factor authentication on updates, which is a really good idea. Everybody should be doing this. I was consulting for a company last week, teaching them a class, and I said, everybody's moving to two-factor authentication all over the board. How about you guys? And they said, we're not doing it at all. And that may turn out to be the most valuable contribution I could give them, is just sort of being horrified and saying, you need to do it. Everybody needs to do it. The sooner you do it, the better off you'll be. It is too easy to steal passwords and get past them. You're going to have bad guys getting in your system until you get two-factor authentication. So this was amazing when I read about this. Ruby on Rails is a web programming platform that was popular about 8 years ago. It's from Japan. Some people love it, although I haven't seen anybody use it in years. But anyway, I saw an article a couple days ago where they say one person came in and kicked all the other developers off the project and took over and started putting weird commits that are offending people. They say, what happened? And it turns out that the guy that wrote Ruby on Rails has been red-pilled. He's a British national, and he's basically the same as a MAGA guy. He's completely racist. He's following Tommy Robinson, the guy that is basically a British neo-Nazi. Had a big rally of 150,000 far-right Brits marching, and Elon Musk was there. And so anyway, it's political. The community is splitting apart over this far-right guy taking over, and the rest of them not wanting to work with this guy. So it's splitting up the Ruby on Rails project. China wants people to stop being pessimistic online. Now, I've heard of the lying flat movement in China, where a lot of young people are just not even bothering to try anymore because they feel like there's no hope for them. So I think you American young people can probably sympathize. In China, they say the young people can't get a job, the men can't find a girlfriend, they're not going to be able to afford a house, and it's not even worth trying. And I think a lot of young people in America feel the same way, especially tech students now. They can't find a job. And so they're just sort of giving up. And apparently a lot of them are just sort of posting negative and pessimistic things online, like hard work is useless and studying is useless. And so they're trying to outlaw that and get them to stop saying that. I don't know if that's going to work. I think it'd be a whole lot more effective to actually address the unemployment. DHH is the initials of the guy that wrote Ruby. And apparently he's the far-right guy that took over the project, and now they're kicking him out, and there's just a huge storm going on. This happens a lot with open source projects. They break up like romantic entanglements and have huge battles and cliques, and it happens all the time. And so the airlines in Europe are all greatly degraded because the ticketing system, the computer system, has been hit with ransomware, and for several days they haven't been able to print any tickets. So if you go to Berlin, this is your boarding pass: name, flight number, time, which seat you're in, that kind of thing. So they're just writing it on a piece of paper like this now for airplane boarding passes. So that's a trip. And I think that inefficient system is slowing down the flights. They're canceling like 75% of the flights at many major airports. And so this story has come up many times. A lawyer went to court with a brief that was written by AI, so it's all full of lies and false fabrications referring to cases that don't exist. Judges reject these, of course, and now they've issued a fine, a $10,000 fine, for filing an appeal full of garbage. And this may set a standard. I mean, up till now, there have been lesser punishments, but judges are getting more and more fed up with this, so they may eventually punish the lawyers enough that fewer of them are willing to embarrass themselves in this fashion. So TikTok, Donald Trump, there was a Congress and the president passed a law before Trump's term that TikTok had to be sold or banned by a certain date, and Trump just keeps extending the date, even though he probably does not have the authority to do that. But he doesn't have the authority to do anything he's done. Everybody's just lying down and let him get away with it. But anyway, the point is, now he says they're going to sell TikTok to Oracle, and Oracle's going to have some control over the algorithm, and so on. Trump says they're making a deal with Larry Ellison, the head of Oracle, Michael Dell, and Rupert Murdoch, making some kind of deal here. Of course, the thing is, as far as I know, this is Trump saying that they are going to do it, and he has a history of just lying. He just makes up things and says somebody has promised to do something, and when they interview them, they say, I didn't say anything. I haven't promised to do it at all, so who knows what's going to happen. But it sounds like TikTok is going to be bought to some extent by Oracle and run by some American company. So we'll see what happens. I wonder if this will please the people that use TikTok. Anyway, that's enough news. I see we're up to 10 past, so I'm going to stop this.